Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, welcome back to another episode of In the Eyes of Truth. Back again with us is Johnee H. For those who don't know or don't remember, Johnny is an Australian freelance journalist who's been covering the Donetsk area, and not only, for the last 2 years of the conflict. He just came back from Szydzhe in the Kursk Oblast.
Hey there, entrepreneurs. Are you feeling the squeeze from increasing regulations and higher taxes? Maybe you've noticed the growing instability and thought there has to be a better way. Well, you're not alone, and that's exactly why you need to consider offshoring your wealth now. Imagine a life where your hard-earned money isn't constantly under threat from unpredictable government policies. Sounds pretty good, right? Let me tell you. It's not just a dream, it's a smart strategy. Here at Exit Strategy, we specialize in helping entrepreneurs like you protect and grow their wealth. We navigate the complex world of international finance so you don't have to, from setting up offshore accounts to advising on the best countries with favorable tax laws. We've got you covered. Now, I know what you're thinking. Offshoring sounds risky, maybe even a bit shady, but the truth is many savvy business owners are already doing it. It's not just about dodging taxes, it's about creating a safety net for your future. Imagine diversifying your assets across multiple jurisdictions. When one country faces economic downturns, your wealth remains secure. Think of it as an insurance policy against the uncertainties of life. And let's not forget, having a portion of your wealth offshore can open up opportunities for international investments. You're no longer limited by the economic climate of a single country. You can tap into booming markets around the world, maximizing your returns. But here's the kicker. Time is of the essence. With increasing global scrutiny and tightening regulations, the window for easy offshoring is closing fast. The sooner you act, the better positioned you'll be. So why wait? Protect your wealth, secure your future, and explore new opportunities with Exit Strategy. Don't let the rising dangers in the US economy catch you off guard. Reach out to us today and take the first step towards financial freedom. Because when it comes to your wealth, playing it safe is the riskiest move of all. Thanks for watching, and remember, your future starts with the decisions you make today. Choose wisely, choose Exit Strategy. Catch you in the next video.
Just recently. So we will be discussing what Johnny saw and other issues. Welcome back.
Yeah, happy to be here. Not only Szydzhe actually, probably the journey to Kazyaloknia was as significant as the journey to Szydzhe.
hmm
But yeah, we came from just the coast front line. Yeah.
So tell us what you saw. I mean, we know what we hear from, well, we know what we hear from the U.S. And the Western media, and we know, well, some of us know what we hear from the Russian side. I unfortunately haven't had a chance to go down there yet for one reason or another, including an illness I had. So in the past tense. So tell us how your trip went down, who you were. Well, don't tell us the unit you were with, but the people you were with are in the area and what you saw.
Actually, the unit I was with are very happy, and they want me to tell
Oh, well, in
their
that
name.
case, because normally
For
it's
some reason,
military. It's military censorship. You don't tell certain things. But
yeah.
if they're not,
I think something about the volunteer units, but anyway, I won't say anything. Okay, so we went down to Szydzhe, and no, the first day we went down to Kazalochnia, and actually it was a really peculiar trip because I uh, I didn't know what I was going to do the first day, and I contacted a contact that I met 4 months before and when I was in Kursk, and the guy is connected with the church, and he's also connected. I did a story about the Kursk icon, the famous Kursk icon. So I contacted him, and he just said to me, "Oh, I gotta. You just meet the priest me and the priest in the morning." So I thought we were going for a coffee with him and the priest. And when I arrive. There's the Bukhanka, there's another car, there's all these, soldiers ready with their hunting gun, their drone hunting guns. And
Shotguns, yeah.
we're going to the front line. And to be honest with you, if he would have told me in advance we're going 1 kilometer from Ukraine positions, I probably would have said no. But you know, in a good Russian way, they don't tell you many things until after, and I think it's better like this. You know, so anyway, we went with a military priest, and the mission was actually to save icons and to say prayers and destroy churches and to try and find bodies that need to be recovered because even a couple of the people, and I went with, this I can say, there's no problem. I went with territorial defense, and territorial defense, they are local people. So they, you
Hmm.
know, they're not some volunteer unit that came from another part of the country. So they had a body of relatives that they wanted to find and rescue. And like President Putin said about 4 days ago, Ukraine has made a point to destroy all the churches in the Kursk region. And I've been a witness to that. And you can see in my video that probably Stas will share that the churches are really razed to the ground. Apart from one church in Kazalochnia that they didn't raze to the ground because they turned it into their own military base because they knew the Russians won't shell the church. And the church was big enough to turn it into a military base. So I mean, yeah, so that was the journey. I was really surprised some of the images I saw because some of the villages totally represented the same footage as Gaza. There was nothing left. There was not even, not roofs, not walls on the houses. There was not one house standing. I was surprised to see that because I've been in wastelands in Donetsk, but there was still something standing, and maybe every fourth or fifth house still somehow stood. But in some of these villages around Kazalokchnia, it was just wasteland, absolute and total wasteland. And so we went to a few of the churches. The priest is in his 60s, very, you know, very brave military priest. He's been everywhere. And he's also a local boy. So, I mean, not boy, he's almost my age, but, you know, he's a local guy. So he knew the churches all personally. So we went to the churches. He said some prayers. Of course, I didn't understand. I don't speak the language. Then they unfurled, you know, the famous Russian flag, the old icon of the. I actually have the icon
The
here. You
icon
know
of
what I'm.
Christ, the red flag
Yeah,
with the
the
head
icon
of
of
Christ.
Christ
Hmm.
was unfurled in front of each one of these churches. Prayers were said. Uh, and then we went to the church, the big church in Kazalochnia, which because that was still intact, but the expensive icons were looted already. But it was very important for him. If people don't understand, and Stas, you can elaborate on it a bit more. In Orthodoxy, icons are very important. They are much more important than in Western Christianity. You can elaborate on that for a
Yeah, well,
moment.
the icons are the Bible in pictures, basically. They're venerated; they're not prayed to. Just like Catholics don't pray to statues. That's a Protestant slight on both us and the Catholics. They're venerated no less than the Bible itself. They're scenes out of the Bible, and images of saints and of Christ and the first amongst all saints, the Virgin Mary. And they're expensive, especially the old icon. They're collectors, particularly Western collectors, and the Vatican, while we're at it, that really likes buying them up and has been doing it since the 1920s when the Bolsheviks were robbing and destroying churches. And for no, for all intents and purposes, as many have said, and I've said it myself, this is a religious war. This isn't just a war over defending Russians from Western aggression. This isn't just America attacking Russia using Ukraine, which the New York Times has let us know this is a direct war between America and Russia and NATO and Russia directly, not a proxy. This is a coalition war. Just most of the meat is on the western side is Ukrainian, but this is a direct war between the Satanists and the church. And that's why they shoot at churches, they destroy churches, they've banned Orthodox Christianity in Ukraine, substituted with a nationalist church, fake church, and so on.
Well,
And
I'll tell you a story. The priest told me when we reached the church that was still intact, that turned into a military base. If somebody has a weak stomach, just turn off your ears now. So the Russian soldiers that were there during the invasion, they were mostly conscripts. They were young conscripts. They were not professional soldiers in any way. And one of the soldiers that were caught by the Ukraine nationalists, his ears, his fingers, and his private cuts were all cut off and put in a helmet in the church. It's very hard. It's very hard for me even to say it, but it's important that the world knows what are we dealing with here? You know what I mean? It's
yes,
important that the world knows the extreme, because Russians take prisoners also. And I know for a fact, I've been for 2 years on the front line, the Ukraine prisoners are not treated like this. The Ukrainian prisoners are taken, they're fed. I'm sure a couple of them in the beginning get a slap or two, but nobody gets their ears cut off and etc. etc. So it's very important to know what is dealt with here. And now we found all the evidence in the church. So there were boxes with with drone munitions, these special munitions that almost look like RPG munitions that they drop from drones. There were boxes of drone deliveries. So, looks like the Ukraine Lazada delivered to the church, because we saw boxes, and it's all documented. So there's
hmm
no stories here. We documented everything. It's all on video. So they had like night vision drones, these drones. It was all in the church. Then we had all their rations and everything like this. I don't know. Somebody is knocking at. We had all their rations. So everything was there as a military base. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, flat out, like New York, as the New York Times has told us, this is a war between NATO and Russia. And when Trump says, "Oh, pardon these guys," Putin, please, let him walk out. Let whom walk out? First of all, mass murders. There's enough video evidence that's come out of children being butchered, old people being butchered, raped, women then executed. So let these animals out, and a lot of those animals are Americans. Let's talk the truth of it. They
Okay.
are
Okay.
Americans.
Okay. So now let's get to that. Uh, when we interviewed, because we interviewed some fresh refugees from Szydzhe, I'm not talking about old refugees, I'm talking about refugees who actually lived through the occupation. And so what we understand now, most of the war crimes were done in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks. Afterwards, the situation did settle, but a lot of war crimes and a lot of people were killed in the first 2, 3 weeks in different situations and different occasions. Um, so in Szydzhe, mostly what they heard in the first days was Polish, not Ukrainian, not Russian, Polish. And in Kazalochnia, there were Americans, there were French, and they also described to me a lot of Asians, but they couldn't say where. One guy said Vietnamese, but when I told him, how do you know? He said, I don't know. I just know they were Asians. So let's not put now Vietnam at a thing like this, but there were a lot of Asians. And now I understand also why. Because the mercenaries have no problem to kill Russian civilians. Some Ukrainian soldiers, especially fresh conscripts, the ones that are taken off the streets, etc., they have a little bit of a problem sometimes to kill Russian civilians because they have relatives here. So some of them, let's be honest, some of them are also human. Some of them are see themselves as Russians. They have a problem. So the mercenaries were the advanced troops thing. A lot of them are the ones that shot at the cars because all the people who tried to escape were shot at. Some managed to escape, we met one woman who kept diaries, and so we'll advertise later the diaries and the names of 24 people from her street and her neighborhood that were killed by the Ukrainians. But she also says an interesting story. She said after the situation stabilized, because after a while they also even started bringing some bread and things because the people had to eat something. First of all, they robbed everything. In the first 2 3 weeks, they robbed everything. The cars, the TVs, everything was robbed. But after, to keep the people alive, they did give some deliveries of bread and some conserves and things like this, so that people won't die. But the people still didn't get medical attention, and some people died also for lack of medical attention and things like this.
This is
But
mostly old people that
this
I'm
lady
sorry
told
to,
us
mhm.
an interesting story. Uh, After 4 months, she was an older lady. After 4 months, she understood that she was fed up. And a few Ukrainian, they were mostly conscripts, were standing outside in the street. So she went out. She was in her 60s. She figured out, okay, they probably weren't going to kill me. They're all Ukrainian. They're all speaking Russian to each other. So she started yelling at them. Look, we are the same as you. What are you doing here? Have you lost your minds? We are the same people and everything. And she said that one of the soldiers started crying. So, I mean, I want to say everything that I see. I want to talk about the war crimes. I want to talk about the horror stories. But I also want to talk that Ukrainian soldiers also have a humanity, especially the conscripts, the ones that don't want to be there, but are there. So I'd like to present, all the sides of the story. And yeah, the first 2 3 weeks were horror, and many, many, many civilians died, were tortured. I think I told you before, I documented 4 months ago when I was in Kursk, when the soldiers first arrived in Szydzhe, they told some kids that they can go ride their bicycles, and the moment the kids were on the bicycle, they shot all the kids dead. So that all happened in the first weeks. Afterwards, and also people were killed during the months. The men that went and started to argue with the Ukrainian soldiers, they were usually killed. We have evidence in one of the churches, they hang a man that he basically had enough and he started a big argument with the Ukrainian soldiers. So they hanged him in the church. Not in that church in Kazalochnya, in another church in the village that I told you was razed to the ground.
Yeah, there's you're right about the mercenaries too. They're absolutely, you know, America, UK, those are your sons. I hope you have pride in them. I hope the ones that actually survived. You give them a big hug and say, "Oh, what great people you are," because they're mass murdering animals. And by the way, mercs, if snitches get stitches, mercs get a controlled shot in the head. They don't get taken prisoner for the most part. They get executed on the spot.
Well, what I heard, and this is just hearing, it's not something that I witnessed or anything. What I heard is some units don't take any more POWs.
Hmm.
They just like they don't bother with that. It's like
Yeah. Well, when you see this, during World War II, the Great Patriotic War, Hungarians weren't taken prisoners at that point because the Hungarians had committed so many war crimes, much worse than even the Germans, except for the SS. Hungarians committed so many war crimes against civilians. The Red Army had a policy, Hungarians don't get taken prisoners; they just get wiped out. So, yeah, same concept.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, you can continue to ask me questions. I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but because it was a really intense journey. It was a really intense journey. It was like 1 week of no sleep because people don't understand. It's like when you're independent, it's not only that all day you have to be in the field and things like this. Then you come home, you have to have dinner. You have there's hours of material that you need to edit or download to your computer and things like this. Make space in the cameras again, like this all this thing. So by the time you go to sleep, it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and then 6 in the morning. It's like thing. I mean, we were very, very, very lucky in our trip to Szydzhe because it was a rainy, cloudy day.
Hmm.
And I think it's the only reason they not agreed. I didn't ask them. They decided to cross the river because I was the first one actually to cross the river. Szydzhe has a broken bridge, and then you cross the river. We managed to cross through a bit of concrete bits that are still on the river and things like this. Because it was such a bad day, it was, I mean, a couple of drones did pass and we had to run for cover, but if it was a clear day, I don't think they would have taken us across the river. I
Right,
don't think so.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that you're absolutely right. Rain plays havoc with the drones. Strong wind plays havoc with the drones, and fog's best of all.
Eh, well, so this is the my personal luck. The first 2 days in Kazalochnia, there was really strong wind, like really
Hmm.
strong wind, and in Szydzhe there was a heavy rain, and it was just like, I mean, it's people have to understand something because I was talking a very brave commander that took us to Szydzhe, and there's only two because nobody wants to show, we don't want to show that too much thing, so we're just walking with two soldiers, nothing else, it's not like
Right,
big
right.
protection thing, like basically a commander and somebody with a drone gun, that's all. And afterwards, the commander says to me, "You're very brave." I told him, "What are you talking about? We're very brave. I'm totally afraid." And he said to me, "We're all afraid." He said, "That's the survival mechanism, but
Right.
you did it. You did it." So whoever thinks that we're not afraid, absolutely, everybody wants to live. We want to live. You know what I mean? And there's a threat of death, and the survival mechanism is fear. But then there's two type of men that afraid and not do things, and men are afraid and do the things. So that's all different. Everybody's afraid, man. I
Yeah,
mean, a few psychopaths maybe are not afraid, but everybody's afraid. Yeah.
yeah, like the saying goes, bravery is what happens after you get afraid.
I mean, the sigh of relief when you finish the day is incredible, man. It's like it's almost euphoric, It's especially on things like when you Szydzhe, because Szydzhe was quite hairy. There was still street battles on the outskirts and things like this, so we could hear all the time the sound of light machine guns and. There could be a stray bullet, and anything. So yeah, Szydzhe, I would say, it was quite hairy.
Yeah, I find it easier in a situation like that. You just don't think about everything. You just do what you need to do. Don't think about anything else. Happens, it
No,
happens.
but when you're in it, there's no thought. That's what
Yeah.
I find. There's fear before and there's fear after. Oh my God, what the fuck have I
Yeah,
done? But
realization comes in. Holy
yeah, no,
crap.
no. I mean, there's no time to be afraid when you're actually in it, because on both days they just said to us the same thing: look to the ground and look to the sky. Look to the ground because there's mines, there's petal mines, there's unexploded munitions, there's clusters thing, and look to the sky for the obvious reason, the drones. So you base and then I had some people complain to me, your camera is not stable. Why is it going down a lot? When I'm trying to, I try not to step on mines, man.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, pe people really don't realize this isn't a studio. Oh, look over here. We walk down here, move the body. No, the Ukrainians do the studio thing when they're trying to set up fake war crimes. But yeah, this isn't the studio. It's not a
Well,
walk
and
down
and
the
I and I
park.
and I and I want to pay the respect to that. Today's last week, 5 Russian journalists died and
Yes.
3 got injured, and I really want to pay my respect. Even I have some goosebumps when I talk with them because since I'm here for 2 years, about 36 or 38 Russian journalists died on the front line. At least 5, 6 of them I know from Donetsk. Maybe not as personal friends, but we always greeted each other on sites and things like this. The first thing we said when we arrived out of Sucha is like uh, just the fact that journalists cannot dress anymore in blue is a
Mhm.
war crime.
Yes.
We're supposed to be protected by the blue helmet and by the blue vest. But actually, the blue helmet and the blue vest make us into a target, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, that's a war crime by itself. And people said to me, Russia does the same crime. And I can say, for a fact. And people know me who know me well enough know that when Russia does something wrong, I'm also critical of Russia. Russia never targets journalism. on purpose. A Russian drone operator will never go honing on onto a foreign journalist or Ukrainian journalist on the other side. And I'll say another thing. A Russian drone operator is never going to chase Ukrainian civilians in order to kill them. You know, civilians die on the other side as collateral damage, like maybe a Russian missile targeted some energy infrastructure. Maybe there was one or two civilians in the wrong place in the wrong time. I'm not saying Ukrainian civilians don't die in this war, but Russia never, on purpose, tries to kill Ukrainian civilians, because I talk all the time with Russian commanders, priests, soldiers, everything, and they all say to me the same to me. There are people. We're not going to kill our people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you're talking about journalists, first of all, out of those five, one journalist and her cameraman, they hit a mine. So you can say that, okay, collateral damage. She died and the cameraman was injured. The other journalists were hit by HIMARS. So Americans killed those journalists. Well, I mean, I'm gonna pull punches. American people sit in the HIMARS, American mercs, if you want to call them that, whatever. And as New York Times told us, and I've been saying, it's Americans that choose the targets. So they were hit by a HIMARS missile. The U.S. murdered them. The U.S. government murdered them. So
I would
that's,
just like
I mean,
to add
let's
some.
just be honest about it and not pull any punches.
Well, I'd like to add something to the audience, because I've been to many HIMARS attacks in Donetsk, and a HIMARS is a very precise missile.
Hmm.
It's not like when you fire 155 or when you fire Grad, the Grad can miss, the Oregons, they're not very precise. A HIMARS maybe will miss by 20 meters. You know, and a HIMARS flies, it doesn't fly in an angle, it flies and then it drops direct down. So it's a very, very precise munition. So if a journalist was killed by a HIMARS, there's no accident there.
You know, I've been in a hospital in Gorlovka that was hit, a military hospital, true, but a hospital off limits by the very Geneva Conventions America signed. And it was hit by HIMARS, and the HIMARS hit the roof, went through about well, it's about an 8-story building, or 6-story building. I'm sorry, went through about five of those stories and exploded inside. So you basically out of that wing of the hospital, you had a shell, the outside shell, everything inside was destroyed. So again, that was precision targeted to a hospital. There were
Uh,
no other buildings around except for some utility buildings for that hospital.
I don't think there's any hospital in Donetsk that hasn't been targeted by now. And I have been to quite a few schools that have been targeted.
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, if you want to write some books about war crimes during and after this war, you could probably write a library. So, it has to stop. It has to stop. And the only way it will stop is by America withdrawing its support. It seems that Trump changes his mind every day. Today, this morning, he said he will impose new sanctions on Russia if Russia doesn't sign his peace agreement. Of course, Russia will not sign his peace agreement. Russia was fooled already 3 times. So Russia will
Four,
sign their peace
five.
agreement.
It's
Sorry?
worse. It's actually, I think, about five now.
Yeah. So it's the story of America. When America pulls out, this war is over. The same with Israel and Palestine and thing like this. When America pulls out, the people in Gaza will stop dying. I mean, I see it as the same hands pulling the same triggers and things like this. So yeah, it's America has to stop this war. Zelensky. I think Zelensky is almost like a non-entity soon, because Zelensky knows too much. I don't think anybody will allow Zelensky to last for too long.
No, no. They all have a tendency of not living to old age. But you know, when you talk about the press being targeted, two interesting things. First of all, this isn't a new phenomenon. The Nazis have been doing this since 2014, actively targeting the press. So it's been quite a while since people stopped wearing blue. I mean, before the special military operation, they stopped wearing blue because they were just major targets. But it's not just the press. They target priests, they target medics, they target everything forbidden by the Geneva Convention. And since, a year ago, the New York Times detailed how the CIA created SBU and made policies for them, that terrorist organization. And now we know that the U.S. is running this entire war from day one. Directly, well, that's on those U.S. That's on the heads of U.S. generals like Donahue, on Milley. They're the war criminals because guess what? If your soldiers are doing it, you answer for that.
No, no, no. I agree completely. Like I said, the US has to pull out. This war has to stop. It's a war between Russia and the US. I feel extremely sorry for the Ukrainian soldiers. I see the million Ukrainian soldiers. I mean, I don't want to get into semantic if it's 900,000 or 800,000 or a million, but the incredible amount of Ukrainian soldiers that have died, somehow also a war against the Slavs. Because the West just got rid of 1,000 Slavic men. There's a lot of deeper agendas here that I don't want to even
Yep.
go in because we don't have the time and we want to focus with the audience about what's happening this moment in the here and now. But I feel so sorry for the Ukrainian soldiers. I have never in any of my reportage called the Ukrainian soldiers names because most of them are victims as well. And this is what we have to understand. Most of the Ukrainian soldiers, I'm not talking now about Azov battalion and a few of these battalions. I'm talking most of the Ukrainian soldiers are victims as well. They're victims of empire. They lost their life for nothing. They didn't lose their life defending Ukraine. Nobody ever be fooled by that narrative.
Yep. That's very true. Let me ask you this. How did the civilians react to you when you talked to them? All things considered, you don't speak Russian. You're not Russian. How did the civilians react?
Look, in my first 2, 3, 4 weeks in Donetsk, in all the pubs, the talk was an Australian spy has arrived in Donetsk. Uh, uh, Russians are like this. First of all, they have dark humor, and secondly, they take time to trust. But in Russia, you have to prove yourself first.
Yes.
And after they saw me, they saw my actions, they saw that I almost got killed a couple of times and I still kept going back. Then they started trusting me. I mean, when I walk down the streets of Donetsk almost every day, somebody stops me. And even if they don't speak English, and spasiba, Johnny, like thank you, Johnny, thank you, Johnny. So I think now the civilians already know me, they trust me. But yeah, in the first few weeks, it was it was just like. But you have to understand, they've been betrayed by the West so
Yeah.
many times. I'll tell you another story. When I went first time to frontline suburb in Donetsk that was shelled every day, uh, I went to the shop and the woman kicked me out of the shop. I wanted to buy a drink. She said, "We've had you Western journalists here before. I think it was a BBC journalist, and you film our suffering, and then on air you say it's Russian that shelled us." You
Yep.
understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
And 6 weeks later, after coming to that suburb for about 6 times, I went to that shop. The lady offered me a free drink in the shop, and she asked me if I would marry her. She needs a husband. So,
yeah.
what I'm
Hey,
what
hey.
no, but what I'm trying to say is you got to show who you are
Oh, yeah.
first. You know what I mean? And you're not going to show who you are. Russians don't believe words. So they've had
Yep.
enough. They've been fooled so many times. But I think I've been here now for long enough to look, I still have people sometimes that think even a couple of times in the comments in my YouTube channel. I don't know if they're Ukrainian or Russian that are writing that, but people write, "Oh, he's a Western spy. Don't trust him," and things like this. But no, it's look, and one thing I have to make clear: I haven't once filmed any. I haven't once filmed any Russian military.
Hmm.
I don't film the conflict. I film the war crimes. I film the civilian suffering. I have not once gone and filmed Russian troops fighting Ukrainian troops. You know what I mean? I'm
Hmm.
not that style journalist, you know. I came it basically to show that it's our weapons of the West that are killing the Russian civilians, and that has to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Like I said, this is the amount of, like you said, the amount of war crimes. There's actually been one book that already came out. I've got a copy of it, the Black Book of Ukrainian War Crimes, and that came out in 23. And I think it needs like another 10 volumes to make it to make any sense of it. 'Cause most of it was war crimes committed during the bombings. And you know, this is how ridiculous this gets. Some liberals that I know in the US have told me that I'm full of Russian propaganda about Lugansk and Ukraine and all and what's happening. So okay, so my home city has been shelled for 11 years. I've been there. I've been on the front lines, seen things in my eyes, and people that can't find Ukraine on a map in the West are so bloody brainwashed. They're telling me I'm being fed propaganda. I'm sure you
I
probably have
can,
heard the exact same thing in your
oh
direction.
yeah, of course, but I can say firsthand that Donetsk and Lugansk, 98, 99% of the population, 100%. They are more Russian than Russians in Moscow, man. They're like,
Oh, that's not hard.
no, no, but they're completely Russian. And I will also be honest, and it's not only me, everybody says it in Russia. Zaporozhye and Kherson, it's probably a different equation. It's probably two-thirds of the people who support are happy to be Russian, and there's a third are still undecided, you know.
Hmm?
But that's the reality. Donetsk and Lugansk, they have been fighting now not for 3 years, they've been fighting for 11 years. Their first idea was not even to join Russia. Their first idea is like, we want to be autonomous. We want to speak Russian. We want to be. And then when they made peaceful demonstrations, and I have the footage of that because I work with Ivan Kupil.
Hmm.
They made peaceful demonstrations, and then a Ukrainian helicopter came and shot them when they said, I remember they said it to me so many times. They said to me, we were shocked because we still felt Ukrainian, and it was our troops shooting us because we said that we will continue to study in Russian and we will continue to speak Russian. And only then they said they understood that they have to fight for their right to be Russian. And they fought for 8 years begging Russia to come in and save them, and Russia didn't come in. So if people are saying that Russia is for a territorial grab, it's a lot of crap. They asked Putin for 8 years to come in, and Putin for 8 years told them, sort out your own problems. And only after 8 years did Russia finally came to rescue Russians in Donetsk. Listen again, Russia came to rescue Russians because the population of Donetsk is Russian. And if you study history, there's been historical mistakes from the Bolsheviks that handing the Donbass to the Ukrainian Communist Party and some deals and things like this. But Donbass has always been Russia. If you want to even go deeper, just look at the name Kiev Karuski and study that. But that's subject to another conversation.
Yeah, well, Kiev's Russian. Kiev's province is Russian. Everything west of, right west of the Dnieper, is still Russian. If we're going to go that far, I mean, if we go far enough down, Galicia is Russian. Was Russian anyways until about the 1400s. But
Yeah,
that's
but Galicia,
yeah,
let's say we don't go back to the 1400, Galicia is Polish. It's not even
Polish,
Ukraine.
Hungarian. It's Galicia is a it's a mess. But that psychopathic culture in Galicia is now what rules in Kiev.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
superimposed this mountainous, very warped culture has superimposed itself on everything else over the last 20 years. So yeah, it's an insane asylum, very much so. But yeah, I still get occasional personal. Oh, you're a spy. Yeah, all right. Okay, I'm a spy. Uh, you get idiots. There's always some amount of percentage of any population that are just, floorboard level IQs. Unfortunate, but that's the fact of it. Or maybe they're bots. Uh,
Look, in the last evening in Kursk, we went to a bottle shop, and I always say to Ivan, let's not speak English in a bottle shop because when we went to one of these famous bottle shop, Red Krasne, there's
Hmm.
a famous bottle shop there, they're a big chain. Ivan wanted to buy some things to take to
Krasny Biele.
Donietsk. Yeah, yeah. So, and one of the guys that spoke English came to me. He said, "Ah, I can see this is a NATO bag you are carrying. I have the small bag that I bought in
Hmm.
Donetsk, a military bag for my
Hmm.
camera and my things. Oh, it's a NATO bag you're carrying. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Johnny, I'm sorry I got to interrupt. We are almost out of time. We got less than 30 seconds left.
No
Uh,
worries. Okay. Cheers, mate.
Want to thank everybody for joining. If you have comments for Johnny, leave them in the commentary. Questions. Johnny, thank you. I hope to see you live soon. And I'll get in touch with the church guy for to organize the
And
next.
there's going to be links below to my
Yes,
YouTube,
yes,
whatever. Yeah, okay.
absolutely. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you for joining us.